Seraphina slowly opens her eyes and finds herself locked in a dark, stone-walled prison cell. She feels cold, heavy chains holding her down and quickly realizes she has thick metal shackles locked tightly around her wrists and ankles, along with a heavy metal collar strapped around her neck. Panic instantly sets in as she violently struggles against the restraints, pulling at the heavy chains in sheer frustration while trapped on the cobblestone floor. She soon accepts the grim reality that she is a prisoner of war, having been captured alive after her forces were brutally defeated by the barbarian army. Her mind flashes back to the fierce battle that led to her terrifying capture. On a dusty, rocky battlefield under a bright sky, the massive armies of the Ildoran kingdom clash violently with the barbaric forces of the east. The barbarians, clad in dark fur armor and horned helmets, wield massive axes and hammers, tearing through the silver-armored knights with terrifying ease. Seraphina acts as the captain of the first company for the Eastern Expeditionary Force. She fiercely fights on the front lines, dodging strikes and slicing through the enemy monsters with her golden-hilted sword. Despite her troops firing organized musket volleys at the charging beastmen, the barbarian resistance proves to be overwhelming. One of her lieutenants rushes over in a panic, urgently reporting that their volunteer troops are completely wiped out and the left wing's front line has utterly collapsed. Seraphina quickly issues orders to pull the left wing back and extend their center and right flanks outward into a partial wing formation. She knows they have to deflect the savage attacks and start a fighting retreat if anyone is going to survive this slaughter. Even with her glowing sword and powerful blue magic shockwaves that send heavy enemies flying backward, the sheer number of the barbarian forces is too much to handle. She realizes that her expedition is officially doomed, and her main goal now is just to ensure as many of her comrades make it home alive as possible. Suddenly, a massive warrior in dark purple armor and a fur-lined cloak steps onto the battlefield, creating a shockwave as he lands. This is Vior, the Thundering Voice and the Barbaric King. With a single swing of his massive dark sword, Vior violently knocks back dozens of silver-clad soldiers, shattering their shields and sending them flying through the air in a spray of blood. He mocks the weak foot soldiers and calls out Seraphina directly, challenging the knight in the crystal helmet to face him alone. Seraphina knows that ignoring a warrior with a blade that can shred plate armor like paper will make their retreat impossible. She orders her lieutenant to take command and leave her behind, instructing him to tell her brother that she gave her life in service to her homeland. With her resolve set, Seraphina charges across the rocky field and leaps high into the air, bringing her sword down on Vior. The two clash in a fierce, high-speed duel, their weapons creating brilliant flashes of white light and bright sparks against the dusty terrain. Seraphina fights with everything she has, parrying his incredibly heavy blows and pushing back with her glowing blue blade. However, Vior's raw, monstrous strength proves to be too much for her to handle. He shatters her defenses, knocking her hard to the ground and destroying his own mask in the process. As her remaining knights watch in horror, Vior stands over the defeated captain. Seraphina refuses to surrender and demands that he kill her right there. Vior just laughs heartily, his glowing golden eyes shining brightly, and bluntly tells her that she belongs to him now. He promises she will survive because he has much better uses for her body. Back in the present, Seraphina sits in her dark cell and remembers his ominous words with absolute dread. She fears that she will be brutally tortured for intelligence or put to work in the fields like common livestock. The terrifying thought of being used as a plaything by a pack of wild animals makes her scream in frustration, feeling deeply ashamed of her current state as an unmarried noble woman. More than anything, she cries over her total failure to defend the people of her kingdom, knowing that without control over the eastern lands, her people will continue to starve and suffer. While she sobs uncontrollably against the cold stone wall, a young servant girl named Circe enters the cell carrying a wooden bucket and a wicker basket. Circe bluntly points out that Seraphina is taking her noble title a bit too seriously. Seraphina demands to know who she is, and Circe introduces herself as a servant to the man who captured her. Seraphina immediately assumes Circe is there to torture her for information and stubbornly declares she will never say a word. Circe completely dismisses the idea and explains she was only given one specific command, which is to make sure Vior's victory trophy is in a condition that he actually likes. Hearing the word trophy makes Seraphina panic even more. Circe grabs a heavy metal chain attached to a wooden board on the wall and pulls Seraphina's arms high above her head, locking her wrist shackles tightly in place. Seraphina shouts and fiercely struggles, asking what Circe is doing. Circe casually notes that it is much easier to work when her prisoner cannot fight back. Seraphina braces herself for vicious treatment, closing her eyes and vowing never to submit to any kind of physical torture. Instead of hurting her, Circe dips a cloth into the water bucket and simply starts washing the dirt and dried blood off Serafina's body. Serafina is incredibly confused by the gentle treatment and demands to know what is actually happening. Circe explains that she is just cleaning her up because she was a complete mess after the battle. As she scrubs her down, Circe mentions that she expected a much more brutish and rough woman, since she heard Serafina actually exchange blows with her incredibly strong master. She openly compliments Serafina's feminine figure, which deeply offends Serafina, who angrily insists that a true knight has absolutely no need for femininity. Circe just shrugs off the complaint, stating that Serafina's opinion does not matter anymore because she has completely caught Vior's eye. Circe makes it perfectly clear that Serafina will never leave this place again. After finishing the bath, Circe unlocks the metal shackles holding Serafina's arms up and dresses her in a clean, dark blue dress, even taking the time to tie a matching blue bow in her blonde hair. Serafina smells the expensive scented oils on her skin and wonders why anyone would use them on a prisoner of war. She nervously paces the cell, wondering what kind of bizarre barbarian ritual she is being prepared for. Suddenly, a loud, thunderous roar echoes outside the cell, and Vior's massive, armored figure appears at the iron gate. Serafina recognizes him instantly, intimidated by his enormous size and his inhuman golden eyes with slit pupils. She bravely stands her ground, proudly introducing herself as Serafina de Lavillante, commander of the First Company. She absolutely refuses to beg for mercy and tells Vior he can do whatever he wants with her for his dark sacrifice. Vior looks highly amused, rubbing his beard as he casually mentions that he brought her here to take her as his bride. Serafina blushes furiously and loudly accuses him of lying, convinced he is just trying to lower her guard for a bizarre ritual. She argues that they are bitter enemies on the battlefield, but Vior calmly explains that his clan has a long-standing tradition of taking lady knights as their brides. He tells her that he is not making this decision out of respect for some ancient law or tradition. Vior explains that when their swords clashed during the battle, he saw her true quality and sensed a profound sincerity from her glowing blade. He openly admits that he fell for her in that very moment. Serafina stands completely frozen in shock, her face red with embarrassment, as Vior tells her to relax because she will not be taken against her will. He promises they will speak more later and walks away, leaving a totally bewildered Serafina reaching out through the iron bars and begging him to wait. Serafina's mind drifts back to 7 years ago in the Ildoran Kingdom. Her older brother, Margrave Sidious, officially names her as the captain of the First Company for the upcoming 17th Eastern Expedition. He tells her to go out and earn glory that befits their noble family name. Serafina accepts the duty with absolute pride, but their conversation is suddenly cut short when Sidious mentions an invitation to a formal banquet addressed directly to her. Serafina attends the lavish party at a grand mansion, but she feels completely out of place in her pink ball gown. The beautiful ballroom is filled with elegantly dressed nobles eating roasted meat, drinking wine, and listening to string quartets, completely ignoring the massive suffering outside their stone walls. Serafina hates how the nobles openly talk about profiting from the endless wars while the kingdom's crops fail and the commoners slowly starve to death. She escapes to an empty balcony to get some fresh air, wishing she could just go home. 3 noble girls approach her and start gossiping about her deployment to the east. They talk about wild rumors of fire-breathing dragons and savage barbarians, expressing extreme disgust at the very idea of a woman fighting in such a dangerous place. Serafina fiercely defends her duty, stating that it is an absolute honor to fight for the peace of her people. The noble girls mock her, claiming there is no greater happiness for a woman than to get married and manage a quiet household. They even bring up Princess Wisteria, Serafina's personal idol who went missing on the battlefield, using her as a prime example of why women should not fight. Deeply frustrated and angry, Serafina leaves the party without saying goodbye. While riding home in her carriage, she takes off her fancy pink shoes and stews over how easy the nobles have it while her people suffer. Suddenly, she hears a man screaming for help outside her window. She grabs her sword and rushes into a dark cobblestone alley, where she finds a group of starving young men trying to violently rob a cart with pitchforks and scythes. She easily overpowers them, knocking one to the ground and holding them all at sword point. The men beg for their lives, explaining that they are just trying to feed their starving families, and that a rich noble like her could never understand their true desperation. Seeing their deep pain, Serafina sighs and lowers her weapon. Instead of having them arrested, she takes off her incredibly expensive jeweled necklace and hands it over to the thieves. The men are totally shocked by her kindness and promise never to do anything evil again. Serafina watches them walk away and vows to conquer the eastern lands so her people can finally live fuller, happier lives. Later that night, back at the castle, Seraphina kneels on a red carpet before a portrait of Princess Wistarasia, praying for guidance and promising to fight with everything she has for the kingdom. Her brother Sidious walks into the room and immediately starts berating her. He demands to know if she failed to find a husband at the party again and strictly orders her to stop acting like a knight. He insists that she needs to marry while she still has viable prospects because a sword has never changed policy. As he steps closer, his figure suddenly seems to morph into a terrifying, shadow-draped man in dark feathered armor with a bird helmet. He looms directly over her, loudly demanding that she become his bride while reaching out with a clawed hand. Seraphina suddenly wakes up with a sharp gasp, her heart pounding heavily in her chest. She finds herself lying in a rustic wooden room on a large bed covered in animal furs. She realizes the terrifying encounter with her brother proposing to her was just a really bad dream and tries to calm her breathing down. Before she can fully relax, she hears a loud, rumbling sound coming from right next to her. She turns her head, and her eyes go wide with absolute panic and confusion. Veor, the massive barbaric king who just claimed her as his bride, is lying right beside her in the bed, sleeping completely soundly and snoring as loud as thunder. This video ends here. Leave a like and subscribe to not miss next part. Thanks for watching and check out our next video.